What exactly is going wrong for the three-peat champions, the treble winners, Manchester City? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Yes, this video is going to centre around Manchester City and this sort of mini crisis that Pep Guardiola and Manchester City find themselves in, especially after the loss that they suffered last night at the hands of Aston Villa at Villa Park. Leon Bailey was the difference maker on the night as Aston Villa ran out as 1-0 winners against Pep Guardiola's side, taking Unai Emery's record at Villa Park to 16 games unbeaten in their last 16 competitive matches. An incredible victory for Aston Villa and a perfect performance, or a nearby perfect performance by Villa as well. They properly schooled Pep Guardiola and Manchester City last night in what was an incredible game of football, and it only adds more sort of pressure, I guess you could say, on Pep Guardiola, and adds more questions on what exactly is going on at Manchester City right now. We're going to be talking about the City game, we're going to be talking about City themselves, a little bit about Aston Villa as well, and everything else in between, and also what certain pundits have said as well about the Citizens. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and very greatly appreciated. And of course, for you lot to get involved in the comment section as well. So I have a lot of interesting thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, that might be interesting and great reading down below. So do get involved down there. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Let's talk Manchester City, Aston Villa. Mainly though, about City, manager Pep Guardiola, and everything else in between. Like I say, last night, City got absolutely schooled. From start to finish, they got absolutely schooled by Aston Villa. And we know that it was going to be a tough game anyway. Villa are on this mad run at Villa Park right now. They've made it after last night's victory. 16 games, I believe, unbeaten in all competitions at Villa Park in the last 16 games. We knew it was going to be tough for them. We knew that Unai Emery has turned Villa Park into an absolute fortress. And City were going there not in the best of form. They obviously drew their last 3 games in a row. They were without a win in their last 3 games. And we knew that obviously they had a ton of injury issues and suspensions that they had to contend with when facing this Unai Emery Aston Villa side. It's hard to feel sorry for a Manchester City side that has won so much and achieved so much in recent years. And we're not really going to be feeling too sorry for them. But at the same time, those kinds of things have to be taken into context a little bit and factored in a little bit when you consider that, yes, City did face their own sort of issues in that particular area of suspensions and injuries. They had no Doku, they had no Grealish. Kevin De Bruyne was still injured. But the one main man in particular is Rodri. And without Rodri, this team is so soft. It is a soft team. This side falls apart, explodes from the inside, implosion, when Rodri isn't there. We'd seen it earlier on in the campaign when Rodri was suspended for 3 games, and I believe in those 3 games they lost to Wolves, they lost to Arsenal, and they lost to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, I believe, without Rodri's presence in that midfield. Fast forward to another game in which Rodri was missing, and City lose. Now, I know that he was there for the past 3 games where they've drawn. Some of it you can say was on Rodri, some of it you can say was not. There are issues though, and there are seemingly growing issues at Manchester City in terms of why they haven't been at their ruthless best yet. And I know that we're not usually used to seeing Manchester City at their ruthless best at this point in the season, but what we are used to seeing at this point in the season when it comes to Manchester City is a team that, by hook or by crook, gets through these types of games. We're seeing it with Arsenal. We've seen it with Arsenal time and time again this season. The amount of times that Arsenal have grabbed a late equaliser or a late winner this season within the final 10 minutes of games. They did it on Tuesday night against Luton. They weren't at their very best, but by hook or by crook, they managed to get the job done. They managed to get the 3 points and the victory against the Luton Town side at Kenilworth Road, away from home. Arsenal got the job done. Liverpool are doing that as well. Liverpool have got their mentality back a little bit in terms of not giving up until the final whistle. They made it life very difficult for themselves against Fulham. They managed to come back from 3-2 down very late on to win 4-3. Against Sheffield United, it wasn't the best of performances, but they managed to get the job done in a 2-0 victory for the Reds last night. City, unfortunately for them, couldn't say the same thing. They got absolutely schooled by Aston Villa in a game in which Aston Villa had 22 shots on goal. 7 of them were on target. And that is in comparison to Manchester City's 2 shots on goal. 2! Both of them were on target. But that was after like the 11th minute. After the 11th minute, City had nothing. Nada. Zilch. 0. No attacking threat on the goal. Emi Martinez had nothing throughout the entirety of that game to do. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Full credit and fair play to Unai Emery and to Aston Villa. We should do a video on them later on to praise how well they are doing, because they've been incredible this season so far. Absolutely phenomenal. And, you know, they're getting a bit of a nosebleed with how high up the table they currently are. They are currently 3rd in the table. They're doing brilliantly well. Yes, their away form is a bit sketchy and does need some clearing up. But if that comes in time, who knows what Aston Villa could definitely achieve this season under the Spanish manager. But Manchester City are in a bit of a crisis. No win in the last 4. Whenever Rodri's not playing, they look soft. They look weak. They look like they fall apart from the inside. That midfield, dreadful. At times. Like non-existent almost. Penned back in their own area for as long as they were. I've never seen a City performance like it. And full credit again to Aston Villa for that. And again, it strengthens the argument that I made that Rodri should be a Ballon d'Or winner, but that may be another thing for another day. But honestly, incredible stuff by Aston Villa last night and a crisis by Aston Villa. But the questions of what exactly is going wrong, I think it's a culmination of different things. I've seen like Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville and Mika Richards both all claim that like City are suffering with a lack of motivation. They're suffering with a lack of composure. There's a bit of complacency there. They've been there and done it. They've got the medals and the t-shirts to show for it. And there's just not enough hunger there, maybe, to go along with it. And I think that may be an element of it. There may be an element of truth behind what they're saying, but I don't think it's the be-all and end-all. I don't necessarily believe that is truly the case. In my personal opinion, I think it's down to bad talent ID. I think it's down to bad recruitment by the club over the years, especially when it comes to that midfield area. And the evidence in that is what happened last night. There's massive evidence to suggest that bad talent ID and bad recruitment over the past couple of years is why City have, in a sort of long-term sort of way, started to falter and stutter a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think they're a formidable side. I still think the manager is incredible. I still think he's phenomenal. I still think City will probably still be in a title race come the end of the season. But they have to get there first. And right now, with how soft their midfield looks, it possibly could be looking at a situation where City may continue to stutter and falter this season. The missed chances from the likes of Haaland and their attacking force is unforgivable for the most part. Obviously, we know strikers have off days, but Haaland against Tottenham was extremely poor, and he didn't really get much last night. I think Martinez denied him from one of the 2 shots that City had. Other than that, nothing. He had nothing. City have definitely missed Kevin De Bruyne. No doubt about it. The defence looks shaky. It doesn't look as strong as what it did. There is vulnerabilities there. The midfield, like I say, with Kevin De Bruyne missing and his absence, has been a tough one for City to take. They've actually suffered with it a lot more than what I thought they would, when, of course, he's been missing for large parts of the season. when you look at the midfield last night, and when you look at the team that they had last night, I know they're suffering with a ton of injuries. I know that they're suffering with a few suspensions during that game. But you've got Bernardo Silva still. You've got Phil Foden. You're playing Julian Alvarez. I still don't understand if Julian Alvarez and Erling Haaland can work in the same starting 11. I'm not so sure if that is necessarily the right call. I think you've got to play one or the other. I'm not so sure that accommodating for Alvarez in a team to make him a makeshift sort of player in a different position to what he's used to is really benefiting the team or benefiting him as a whole. I know he started off the season well, but I'm still not entirely convinced by it. Rico Lewis is starting to get more minutes, but that may be through being forced to play with the squad that they have and the injuries and everything. But the main area of concern has been their recruitment. And their main recruitment in that midfield area over the past couple of years. And the easy way of saying it is that they can say it's complacency. They can say it's obviously being there and doing it all and then not having the hunger to go again. I don't necessarily see it that way. I just see it as this City side has got rid of some key players this past year. The likes of Riyad Mahrez, the likes of Ilkay Gundogan, and whoever else. Even going back to last year, even some of the squad players, the likes of like a Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus, Alexander Zinchenko, and so on and so forth. Cole Palmer even, to an extent. So many players have been gotten rid of by City that maybe it's just one too many. Maybe it's just a few too many players. And especially with those kind of players that have that mentality. Even Cole Palmer, who's grew up in the City setup, knows what it's like being well drilled by Guardiola and the way that he wants to play. And obviously there's a sort of culture that runs through the core of that football club, right from the young squads up through the academy players and the under 23s and under 18s and whatever. There's a core value there from Guardiola that's trickled down throughout the entirety of the team, so that when they actually do step up, they know their kind of role. With a few tweaks to it, they know their kind of role. But the recruitment just hasn't been that great. The recruitment, when they've gotten rid of these players, just hasn't been that good. The talent ID seemingly hasn't been there, and that's on Guardiola, and that's on the club. Again, I go back to last night as the main source of proof of this. You have got 3 midfielders that you've bought across the past couple of years on the bench. Calvin Phillips, worth 50 million on the bench. He still can't get a game even when Rodri's suspended. You've got Mateo Kovacic, 30 million. Came from Chelsea. Mateus Nunes, 45 million, came from Wolves this past summer. They can't get a game in a game that had a limited number of players in that midfield. So you went and put John Stones and Akanji there. Both of them defenders, and I get that John Stones has been playing in that sort of inverted role, and maybe there are a few teething problems with this sort of tweak to the formation and this new sort of idea that Guardiola's been trying to influence on this team for the best part of now just under a year. But at the same time, if those 3 can't get in your team when the opportunity is there for them, why did you buy them? Is this gambles that haven't worked out? Because I remember saying, I understand why each 3 of these players have been brought in at certain times. And when they were brought in, I said, I can understand why Calvin Phillips has been brought in. I can understand why Nunes has been brought in. I can understand why Kovacic has been brought in because of what they offer on the table. And of course, it's Pep Guardiola, so at the end of the day, he's surely seen something in them that he can work with, that he can mould, and that he can really polish to bring out that diamond within them to really have a role and a job within this team. But so far it hasn't worked out. And now I understand that most City signings don't work out in their first season. I get that, unless you're a freak of nature. It took Rodri a few years. It took other players a couple of years. Erling Haaland was a bit of an anomaly. I guess you could say Julian Alvarez maybe as well, although I don't think we've necessarily seen the complete best or consistent best of Julian Alvarez so far. Haaland definitely is an anomaly to that. He hit the ground running straight away. But even so, it's weird to me that those three players in particular, none of them have hit the ground running. Phillips has been injured constantly since he joined Man City. I understand that. But at the same time, he still can't get any game time, even with Rodri not in the squad. And Kovacic and Nunes, it looks like they're failure transfers. And it's only the recruitment team and Pep that are to blame for that, if that is to be the case. If they can't get in the team when the opportunity presents itself and they're being put out of that team to make way for makeshift midfielders in the likes of Akanji and Stones, it's weird to me. And it makes that midfield look soft, and it makes that midfield look vulnerable. And right now, teams are looking at this squad and going, you know what? They aren't as scary as what we first thought they were. They're not as scary as years gone by. And that's why teams are attacking them more. That's why you had the 4-4 game with Chelsea. That's why you had the 3-3 game with Tottenham. That's why Leipzig went there with no fear in the Champions League. Teams are not starting to fear City as much as what they used to. They're seeing vulnerabilities open up. And I, for one, am happy about it and I'm glad. But I fully expect Pep Guardiola to identify these weaknesses and to shore them up and to reinforce them with given time. But for me, it's not a complacency issue. It's not a hunger issue. It's not a mentality issue. It's simply an issue of poor talent ID, poor recruitment, and just these players not being ready yet to handle the pressure of a side that has just come off the back of a three-peat, going for 4 Premier League titles in a row, and obviously looking to defend a treble-winning season. The likes of Guardiola, the likes of Nunes, the likes of Kovacic, Phillips. Phillips didn't even play much last year, but he still managed to obviously win or be recognised as a winner of those competitions. They're just not at that elite level, or just at that, maybe it is mentality, maybe you can class it under mentality, just not of that quality to defend that yet, to get to that level yet. And that's why I think that maybe we should start considering that City won't be winning the title this year. I still expect them to be strong. I still expect them to do something in January maybe, bring in a couple of players. Maybe Guardiola's going to change some things. Maybe he's going to try and stay one step ahead of his opponents like he normally tends to do with formation tweaks and everything to change the City's fortunes around. But for right now, there are growing issues at Manchester City and issues that only he only he seemingly can fix. Only he seemingly can fix. Attacking-wise, Haaland needs to fix up in front of goal, definitely. But there are issues. There are vulnerabilities there that I'm hoping, as a Liverpool fan from the outside looking in, more teams can exploit and more teams can obviously find weakness in. But a fantastic performance by Aston Villa nonetheless. Weaknesses in that Manchester City side. But of course, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of Manchester City and Aston Villa last night? What do you make of the City side going forward? I'd love to know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, in the comment section down below, because I'm sure it'll make for interesting, great reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way up. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things are always there, be greatly appreciated. And of course, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Take care, and I will see and speak to you all again in the next video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. See you soon.